Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey kids, welcome to Grumpy Nostalgia, the Second Look Cinema podcast, the show where we go back to the blockbuster new release wall of our memories, we grab a copy off that shelf, we put it in the VCR, and we see what time has done to it. I'm Justin, that's Mike.
Hola.
And that's Molly.
Michael Van and Melanian.
Oh boy,
oh boy.
There we go.
One of those.
Mike, see what you've done.
Not since the Klingon language have I heard such nerdness.
Wow. Well, you ain't seen nothing yet. But together we're here to help navigate all the landmines littered down memory lane, and Molly just dropped a landmine right there. So there you go. So guys, by the time this comes out, it'll be Christmas Eve, and I just want to do my own little holiday anecdote here, if you don't mind. So almost a year ago, nearly to the day, I got a little DM on my Instagram account, and it was from this overzealous fan that wanted to know if she could be on the show. My first thought was like, my God, what nerve. But of course we came to our senses and realized this is our 1 year anniversary of knowing Molly, Mike.
Wow.
All right.
It's been a whole year?
It's been a whole year.
It's been a year.
Wow.
So Molly, the floor is yours. You want to explain how your life has changed since we came into your life?
Oh my goodness. Well, this is the 5th time I've been on the podcast?
I think this is you a 5-timer now.
This will be a 5-timer, yeah. Well, I think in movies more now than I did I think even before.
Yeah.
So there's that.
This was actually a rhetorical question, but since I put you on the spot, yeah.
Well, and if I remember correctly, I asked if you would do a movie. I just requested the movie and then was invited onto the podcast. So here we are. Well, this is a self-inflicted problem.
Oh yeah. So, well, it all worked out. So we're extremely happy that you've been part of the show, and you've been a joy. So looking forward to keep working with you, obviously.
Thank you.
It's been fun.
It's been awesome.
In fact, in the spirit of the season, we thought we'd offer this as a gift to you as well. Me and Mike try to buy gifts for each other. It doesn't usually work. Last year I sold my hair to buy him a bob, and last year he sold his watch to buy me a comb, and it didn't work out. So we thought this year we'd extended ourselves the courtesy of doing a movie that we liked on our podcast that we enjoyed, and we thought, knowing how you feel about these movies, Molly, and it's always been on your radar as well, we thought it would be a nice opportunity to extend it to you. So that's why we're going to cover this movie this week. We're talking about Fellowship of the Ring, 2001.
Which is a Christmas movie.
Because
there's elves in it.
Elves.
Don't you start to. This is your three hosts, in all transparency there. This is one of our biggest comfort movies across the board, I think. We've talked about this movie in several other capacities, but we thought, it's kind of within the window of what we typically cover for our shows, and we thought as a Christmas present to ourselves, we'd cover it and just kind of. This is our last show of the year, so we're gonna go out on a bang. So you guys ready to jump in here?
Yes,
I am ready to go.
Okay, so this was one of those seminal movies. You got to remember that the cultural zeitgeist. How's that for pretentious? When this came out, we were a couple weeks removed from 9/11, right? And the whole the whole country was in this different mindset. You forget about it now; it's been so long ago, but there was a different attitude about these things. That this movie really just tapped in, I think, to what society needed at this point. A couple months earlier we had Harry Potter, and that kind of brought people out again. And this movie came out later with wizards and ring wraiths and trolls, and where'd all that come from? But this was a movie that the whole country just kind of embraced as a result of those incidents in September. I think that's part of the reason this movie
cultural zeitgeist.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason this movie has really endeared itself to us, because it came around kind of when we needed it, more or less. So why don't we just kind of jump in and talk about all 3 hours and 49 minutes of it. All right, so this, of course, was directed by Peter Jackson, native New Zealander who's famous for making this movie, as well as The Hobbits and King Kong, which we have differing opinions on from now and then. We also did The Frighteners, which is a great little seemingly indie movie, but it was really just kind of way ahead of its time. Did a couple of independent horror movies that were really great too, but never really made it beyond New Zealand. But he's a great director, of course. It was written by, of course, J.R.R. Tolkien. File that under D for duh. But the screenwriters on this one were Peter Jackson himself, his wife Fran Walsh, who also doubled as the voice of the Ringwraith Scream. Is that right?
Yes.
And her writing partner Philippa Boyens, and they've all just kind of worked together on all the Peter Jackson directed vehicles. So it was released on December 19th, 2001. And this particular film, the individual film itself, had a budget of $93 million. But there's more to the story, and we'll kind of get that in as we talk
yeah.
about the movie in a little bit. So this was a blockbuster from day one, from the day they first penned the script, and it really was brought to life by phenomenal filmmakers, amazing scenery, and most importantly, its cast. So, Mike, if you kind of want to talk us through the initial cast here for the first element of the trilogy.
Sure. I've been pondering if Molly was even alive when this movie came out.
She was.
Okay.
I did see it in theaters actually, but only
really?
the first one. Yeah,
Okay.
only the first one.
Wow.
So
all right. We got a great cast. We can't even begin. How long do I have, Justin? Do I have an hour here? Elijah Wood is our Frodo. He's our protagonist. You might know him from that great Rob Reiner, Bruce Willis movie North. He was really good in that.
Radio Flyer too. Yeah.
I'm only going with the good ones, Justin.
Okay. Sorry.
Viggo Mortensen, he plays our hero, Aragorn. Strider, if you want to call him that. I think his first movie was Witness, which is one movie we ought to do in the future. Yeah. So he
Molly made that call a long time ago. So.
Played a nice Amish kid with a bowl cut. Sean Astin, who's Frodo's little fellow friend there, Samwise. Yeah. We know him from Icebreaker, which was a great movie. But, the rest of the folks out there might know him from Goonies, because they never say die. Ian McKellen, who is probably, the most known Shakespearean actor in the list, along with Ian Holm. But that's the first time I remember seeing him in anything. He did this Shakespeare specials for schools where he would do he did everything. He did every Shakespeare play. And he would do monologues from them and just,
Oh, cool.
It was really neat to see. I think I remember that from 8th grade English class. But yeah, if you look him up, he was, he's been in every Shakespeare movie, along with Ian Holm probably is in that group. And who plays Bilbo Baggins and Alien. He was great in Alien as a android. And we saw him in Fifth Element. So
we sure did. Right next to Luke Perry.
they went great together.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. Then you had Orlando Bloom, which I believe was his first movie. Big movie, I want to say. He was playing Legolas, the elf. And then you had just a great group of actors, Australian, English. You had Hugo Weaving, Elrond the elf. You had John Rhys Davies, Gimli, who we know from Indiana Jones, of course. Cate Blanchett, she plays another elf, and she's great. Christopher Lee, who's been in everything, it seems like. Another Shakespearean trained actor, plays in our villainous Saruman. Sean Bean, who dies in every movie. I realize he's always a villain in movies outside of England, but he's been in several TV shows in England, and he's a good guy. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting, He's in Sharp, and he's he's in another detective show where I don't know why. In England, he seems okay, but outside of that, he dies and he's a villain.
We want him dead.
Apparently. And of course, we have to have Aragorn's girlfriend, the elf, played by Liv Tyler.
Arwen.
Thank you. Yeah. She's still recovering from Animal Cracker episode in Armageddon.
See, Mike, I finally put that out of my brain, and now it's back.
There you go. It's back. Just think of her belly button and think of a giraffe slowly diving into it.
I'll do half of that. Yeah.
Okay. And then you have Dominic Monaghan, who formerly of Drive Shaft. Apparently, he is everybody. And I want to give
was he Charlie?
He was Charlie. Charlie. Where's the baby? Charlie, where's the baby? Right. And then I'm going to give a special shout out to New Zealand as a cast member.
I mean,
before this movie, most people, when they thought of New Zealand, thought of Kiwis, rugby, and Lucy Lawless, maybe.
Yeah.
Other than that, it shows up in this movie as almost as a character in itself. Just the geography of both islands that they filmed on is stunning, and the
explosion of the tourism.
It made people just go to New Zealand just because of these movies, and it's incredible. Yeah. It's a beautiful country. So there you go, Justin.
All right. Well, thanks, Mike. The cast of thousands, we narrowed it down to about a dozen, and there's more to go here. Just a few other notes about that cast, and I think we'll let Molly talk about her nerd behind the scenes stuff. Jake Gyllenhaal, he read for the part of Frodo. Did not get it. Elijah Wood was the first person cast, and Liv Tyler was the last person cast right just before shooting. Considered for the role of Boromir, you had Liam Neeson. Bruce Willis was a huge fan and wanted to play the role as well, but did not get the role. Aragorn had several. Actually, he had well, I'll let Molly talk about. Original actor was fired for that one, but also considered for that role were Daniel Day-Lewis, which I think would have been really good, probably. Nicolas Cage, because of course Nicolas Cage. Vin Diesel and Commandant Javert.
Oh, Russell Crowe. Well, it makes sense. He's from New Zealand.
He finally found 24601 and finally had some time to get to work. But
excellent.
Yeah. So Sean Astin gained 30 pounds to play this role, and by the looks of things, decided
he never lost it
just to keep it. Yeah,
just to get it
going.
Gandalf, played iconically now by Ian McKellen. Sean Connery was always considered from the beginning, but he passed on the role because he couldn't understand the script. So, and then Patrick Stewart, who's pretty much interchangeable with all these guys, he was also considered. And I can see both of those working pretty well. But the casting was, again, a monumental task given the amount of characters. And what I like best about this movie is there's not a wasted character here. Every character has some form of journey they develop from A to B. Even the smaller side characters always have this character arc that's really complete. So
and it's like I said, it's a great mix of English, Australian, New Zealand, America. It's just a great mix of the cast.
Even the Americans pulled off the English accents relatively good too. So this movie needed English accents. I'm glad they decided to go that way.
Even Sean Astin didn't do too badly.
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah,
better than Keanu and
right.
Poor Keanu.
Yeah,
never live it down.
The logistics of making this movie have been well documented by other better podcasts than us, but there's several things that are really kind of behind the scenes that are really cool about how this movie ultimately got made. So Molly, I'm sure you have a few you'd kind of like to share with us.
Oh yeah, got a few things. Specifically, what a workshop, just the attention to detail that was put into these movies and from my understanding, What a Workshop existed before this happened, before they did this. And they'd actually worked with Peter Jackson a few times on some of his previous films, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Frighteners, yeah.
Okay, yeah. But it did not, this is what really sent Weta to the forefront of, along with everything else. This was just a gigantic, life-changing movie for not just the cast members and stuff like that, but the people behind the scenes as well.
Yeah.
The extended editions come with the appendices where you can watch the production and how they made everything, and just the workshops of people putting together armor, one ring at a time. And
it's amazing.
Chainmail.
Making their chainmail and the leather armor where it's like they have areas on the back that are carved and stamped that it's like you'd never even gonna see in the film, but just the attention to detail that they put into it is insane. It blows my mind every time I see it.
Yeah, I've combed over these appendices like several times. They're such a neat little thing to have as a companion piece, the DVDs, the Blu-rays.
Oh yeah.
Even the engagement from the community, because I remember one of the vignettes you're talking about, whenever there was a scene, in this one particular where Arwen's stunt riders going through the pine forest, they had the locals walk shoulder to shoulder through the fields the horses would run to make sure there were no ruts or holes, to make sure the horses were safe, just to have that engagement. Just the scale and logistics are just really cool.
I'm trying to think of other pre-production. I know that I think they started pre-production 2 years beforehand. So they actually started in 1997 and then started filming in 99. We're talking about Fellowship today, but they filmed all three movies intermingled together over a period of about 18 months. So again, like I was watching it the other day with my husband, and I'm watching it and I'm like, I know this movie inside and out. And if I wasn't aware of, okay, this was filmed on this day and then they filmed the other side like a year later, if I didn't know that stuff, like it's so seamless. The way that it's put together, and I don't know.
I think the even neater story even prior to that is like, they had shopped this thing around for years trying to get the studio to commit to it. And most of them, because of the risk and the logistics and the size and the scale, the Beatles wanted to try to make this movie with Stanley Kubrick, and Kubrick said it was unfilmable, right? So, I mean, it's been out there for years and years and years. So they finally got to the point where they went to, I think, New Line Cinema. And, they had been rejected by every major production house in Hollywood until they came to, I think the producer's name was Robert Shea. And, it was kind of like their last Hail Mary attempt. They said, they didn't want to hear this can only be one movie. So and they wanted at least be two. And he said, there's no way this can be two movies, is what they told him. And they're all depressed. And he says, and he springs on up, it has to be three. And then that's what really kind of lit a fire everybody. And that's a huge risk to know that, you're going to bankroll three films. If this one didn't hit, the finding, it would have bankrupted New Line easily. But the rest is history, as they say. So, yeah.
From my understanding, too, New Line had kind of had a string of bad luck at that point, and they were kind of like, well, this is it. This will bring us back, or we're done.
Yeah. I love to see, like, some of the gambles like that for it to pay off. It's always kind of a neat, especially in Hollywood, it's always kind of a neat story. You mentioned the scale of the shooting and all that, Molly. They had like anywhere from between 5 and 7 units shooting simultaneously for a year and a half. And then, Peter Jackson was essentially, typically when you get dailies from a movie, it's 20, 30 minutes. He was getting 4 or 5 hours a day. And so he'd shoot for 12 hours and he'd spend the next 6 hours of the day in the editing room with the editor on this, whose names escape me, unfortunately. Just a phenomenal job to edit this thing down, even at its 3-hour and 40-minute running length, to edit it down so well. It's just amazing. So, Mike, just for you, I just want you to know all the wigs, all the characters wear wigs in this movie, with the exception of Peter Jackson's real son, who played a cameo as one of the little Hobbit children.
Oh, Elijah Wood had a wig?
Yeah, they all wore wigs.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but
they're really, probably the wig maker should have gotten a technical Oscar for this one.
Yeah. David Bowie was actually really a big fan. He wanted to play Elrond, which
I would love to see that. That would have been incredible.
Needed to find a way to make that happen, but I think the consensus was that David Bowie would be too much of a distraction. All you would see was David Bowie up on screen.
His facial structure is almost exactly like
he looks like an elf. Yeah,
I know, right?
Lucy Lawless, you mentioned, Mike, another Kiwi. She was considered for Kate Blanchett's role of.
What about Sam Neill? Was his name bandied about? He seemed like he would be good.
It was.
He looks like Hugo Weaving in a way. He would almost be a good Elrond.
Sam Neill was considered for Gandalf, I believe.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, but instead he decided to do Jurassic Park 3. So, same.
Win some, you lose some. Yeah. But, we talked about the year that this came out, and it really kind of just laid the groundwork for America was hungry for something. The world was really for something that make us feel better. And this movie just came along at the most opportune time. So some of the things that were going on in 2001, like, we always like to talk about the music, and Molly, this is probably something you were listening to next to your kids' bop. But the biggest hits on the radio here were Usher, You Got It Bad. But it seemed like what he did here was he used the letter U instead of the word U.
That's
cutting edge.
Yeah, you had How You Remind Me by Nickelback.
Oh, no.
Yeah, hold on, it gets better. You had My Sacrifice by Creed.
Oh.
And then you had
it's like a bastard cousin of Nickelback.
There you go. And then my favorite one here on the list was From Her Mama, and then in parentheses, Mama Got Ass, by Juvenile. These are what we were listening to.
Oh my.
So these weren't featuring anybody, right?
Yeah. So our assertion that pop culture scale for music went down after the 2000, Mike, I think it's still holding firm, don't you?
Of course.
Yeah. So on the TV, Molly, you were watching Sex and the City. No, you weren't. You were too little.
We didn't have TV when I was a kid, so
that's probably better. Yeah. Look what you're missing. You're missing Survivor. There are about 15 Law and Orders, and then like Monday Night Football. Those are the top 5 TV. So I mentioned this came out on December 19th, a holiday movie. You had Harry Potter came out on November 16th. So
was it the Sorcerer's Stone, the first one, or was it?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
The very first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had no idea they both started.
Those were that close. Yeah.
Yeah.
On December 7th, a couple weeks earlier, you had Ocean's 11, which is a great movie, one of my favorites. After this movie, you had some more Oscar bait coming out. You had Beautiful Mind, again with Javert. Mike.
Excellent.
And then you had a slew of other Oscar bait movies, including Black Hawk Down, Monsters Ball, Ali, The Majestic, and then, of course, How High. How High was it Red Man? And
is that not Genuine?
Who's the other rapper?
Method Man.
Method Man, yeah.
And Red.
Oh my.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh shucks, I can't remember. Was
he
part of the Wu-Tang Clan?
I believe so.
That's going to bother me. Okay.
Oddly enough, did not get any Oscars. Weird, right?
What?
Yeah.
Who'd have thunk?
So for the box office that year, even though this came out in the calendar year, like 2 weeks before the year was over, it was second ranked box office that year, right behind Harry Potter, followed by Shrek, Monsters Inc., The Mummy Returns, and Planet of the Apes, Mike.
was a heck of a year.
Heck of a year.
One way to
Heck
put
of a
it.
2 weeks.
Some other stuff on the pop culture scene, at least, that we could talk about just briefly. I mentioned Kids Bop to Molly. That's the year that they premiered. They would repurpose songs for kids and take all the colorful language out and repurpose that. It's always funny.
Like That Ass or whatever. Mama's Ass.
Mama Got Ass. Yeah.
Mama Got Ass.
The Xbox and GameCube came out. Those are big hits for us. Gas was only $1.46 a gallon, so not too bad there. But I think the biggest thing here was there was a 260,000 gallon pipeline spill in Alaska.
The Valdez spill?
No,
no,
the Alaskan pipeline.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Molly. There was a bullet hole found.
Oh no!
So
Why am I not surprised?
Molly, can you provide your whereabouts? You were not in Alaska, right?
Not at that time, no.
Fair enough. All right. All right, so that's kind of where we were, guys. So, the cloud hanging over post 9/11 was still here. And I think that's really what, endeared this movie to a lot of people. As a great escapism has always been the reason for fantasy movies to be good. And like I said, this is really hit at the right time. And I escaped to it 6 times in the first month. So, I mean, I just,
wow.
Yeah, but we'll get to that a little bit more on our final watch. So we got a long way to go here. So maybe we should just kind of jump in. So, Mike, are you ready?
Sweet.
Let's do it.
Molly, you ready to go?
I am ready.
All right,
quit with the talking and start with the chalking.
Make with the yak, right?
Yeah.
All right, Mike, hit the button. So we immediately start out with this amazing prologue, which I think the producers only wanted to be like a couple minutes, right, Molly?
I think so, and from what I understand, is it was quite long, and then they had to whittle it down, and it went back and forth. But there was a question as to who was going to do the prologue, the voiceover. That changed hands a couple of times.
Well, in an 1,100-page book, you got to establish some sort of backstory, and it ultimately ended up doing a 7-minute prologue, starting with Kate Blanchett's voice doing the narration over the screen, and just again very clean, very efficient. The first 7 minutes of this movie will get you. If you're in it, you're in it. You're not going to go anywhere because it introduces the backstory of the ring and how Sauron affixed this evil to it. It provides the scale of the movie of how it's going to be. That huge battle at the beginning, guys. It's just wow, right? One of my
bonkers.
Yeah, it shows the battle for the ring, and then ultimately Isildur, who's Aragorn's great grandfather, I think. Power of that ring is so intense that he couldn't part with it.
Resist. Yeah,
and it really sets up the ring as its own character in the movie almost. It's like it's this menacing thing. It's far more villainous than any other traditional villains in this movie. Just its power, the evil behind it. So that first battle scene that really showcased Weta's tech and their CGI, and they actually wrote a program, a war program, right? So
yes, I think it's called Massive, but it was the first time they'd done that type of. Basically, they wanted to have a program that could have thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds. I think by the time you get to Return of the King, it's hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
But it was invented around the same time, and then this was the first time it had been used. It was for this film.
Really kind of initial AI, because all the individual characters had to make their own decisions and things like that. So it's really cool. This scene is I remember this just taking my breath away, because you'd never seen anything on that size and scale before, but there's a special blended art of like CGI and practical effects here as well. And it seems really trivial, but just when Elrond's got the forces behind him and they unleash that first volley of arrows, you can see the wind caused by those arrows blowing his hair. That's just so cool, right? The prologue is about the war for the ring, and then ultimately how it gets lost over generations, and we kind of did segue right into the Shire, where we get introduced to our Hobbit friends and our friend Bilbo, who found the ring 2,500 years later as part of the adventures in the Hobbit, kept it as his own, without any understanding of what it was or what the intention of it was. It's his 111th birthday. Mike, he's 11-1 today, Mike.
11-1.
Yeah.
So he does look a day over 40.
That's right.
Right.
So Peter Jackson said he made the scene a little bit longer than he needed to because he knew the story was going to be dark for the next 9 hours. But it's kind of a jovial kind of party here, and you get introduced to all the main hobbits, introduced to Gandalf, and this kind of ends with Bilbo's kind of a malcontent, and he's not really happy living in the Shire anymore. He wants more, and he decides to play a trick on all his neighbors and friends and neighbors, and he puts the ring on his birthday and disappears. And he thinks it's really funny, and then Gandalf calls him on it and tells him, if you're going to leave, but leave the ring behind. And obviously, there's some you start to understand what the ring does to people, and he fights it, but ultimately relents and gives it up, and he leaves it for Frodo. And then Gandalf kind of gets the willies when he does that, especially when he sees how he suspects there's something wrong, so he goes back to Gondor, does some research, and finds out that this is the ring that they fought over in the opening scene.
The One Ring.
He's horrified, and he runs back and tells Frodo he needs to get out of town. So his intention, he wants it to bring it to the elves, so they journey out, and on their way, Samwise is eavesdropping, so he gets punished by accompanying Frodo to Rivendell, and they journey out under
dark of night.
Yeah, they go out under dark of night. Yeah, and because it's a black bag operation, Mike. At this point,
oh no.
So on their way to Rivendell, they stop over at Bree, and they're supposed to meet at the Prancing Pony, and Gandalf doesn't show. And we realize that Gandalf had gone back to confer his findings with his mentor, Saruman, the master wizard. And he turns out that Saruman has done a heel turn, and now he's in the camp with Sauron now. And they've sent these 9 riders, the Black Riders, out to catch the ring and to kill whoever has it. So and then he ends up imprisoning Gandalf, and now Gandalf's on top of
Orthanc.
The Tower.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the Tower.
The Tower of Orthanc. Yeah. So he's kept in prison, and the Hobbits don't know what to do, and people are after him, and that's where they get introduced to Aragorn. He takes the lead from there.
There's a lot of plot.
Yeah,
that's what I was wondering how you're going to whittle this down.
So after they meet with Aragorn, they decide that the safest place to go is to Rivendell. It's where all the elves live. So on their way there, they meet various.
Have you been smoking the halfling's leaf, Justin?
It's yellowed my teeth and corroded my mind.
Load your mind.
Yeah. They meet various obstacles there. Primarily the fact that the Black Riders have been released, and they're chasing them down, and they end up stabbing Frodo, and that's where we get introduced to Aragorn's real fighting prowess. This was Viggo's first scene he shot. First day on set was this battle scene here.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Never had held a sword before, but you would never know it. But
no.
So he ends up Frodo gets stabbed, and they decide, well, they've got to expedite everything. So they find Arwen makes her appearance here and we get introduced. There's a bit of a romantic backstory there between Arwen and Aragorn. We'll get into that here in a little bit. So she hauls. She's basically the EMTs that come in and take because she can ride 3 times faster than everybody. It's this really thrilling sequence here, guys, where that scene where the 9 riders are chasing her, amazing. Like miles and miles of film were shot for this, but just an amazing scene,
Flight to the Ford.
Yeah. See, okay, Molly's really getting it now.
Sorry,
but
all here.
what I like best about this is there's some behind the scenes stuff here, that Arwen's stunt rider loved this horse so much that Viggo Mortensen bought it for her.
Yeah.
he ended up being a bit of a horse whisperer himself, much like his character was. And
of course, because he did everything.
Yeah, because he's kind of a badass front to back here, but he actually bought that horse for her at the end of shooting so she could take care of it. So just a really cool story.
It's pretty incredible.
Stand-up guy. So they end up going to Rivendell, where Frodo gets mended and healed, and they meet up with Gandalf, who figured out a way to use one of the eagles to jump off the top of the tower to escape, essentially just pissing off Saruman, who all the while is building an army of orcs.
Yeah, as you do.
Ready to, because in his spare time, he's ready to unleash them to take over. They've all met at Rivendell to discuss what to do with the ring. And this is where we get introduced to the last of the cast. You get introduced to the world of men, represented by Boromir. He gets represented by the elves. You see Orlando Bloom here. Gimli represents the dwarf. Yeah, it's kind of like a model UN. They all meet together to talk about what to do with this ring. But it's determined that they're all assuming that the elves are going to take care of the ring, but the elves say they're not. We're leaving these shores, and they decided what they've got to do is someone's got to take that ring back and destroy it. And the hands don't really pop up. It starts a lot of bickering and infighting, and of course, Frodo stands up and says, "I'll take the ring and I'll destroy it." And then that act of humility and selflessness makes the rest of the guys decide, well, we'll help you, and that's where we get the fellowship is established at that point. So it's been determined they've got to go all the way to Mount Doom, to Mordor.
You need Gimli's axe.
Yes.
And Legolas's bow.
That's right.
Yeah. But it's determined that they're going to make the trek. This is about an hour and 50 minutes, guys, and the movie's just getting started.
End of disc 1 if you're watching the extended version.
Exactly. Yeah, that's when you got to flip the disc over,
well,
right?
Hour and a half in, exactly.
Yeah. So at this point, this is where the second act kind of picks up, and it's really thrilling here because it's their journey across Middle Earth, and they try to cross the mountains in the snow, and Saruman puts a spell on it and causes an avalanche and then lightning and stuff like that. Yeah, clouds their way. He controls the animals and the birds, so he can see wherever they're going. So they get to Gimli, because he's lived in mines underground his whole life with elves, decides the group to go under the mountain instead, through the mines of Moria. And there's a wonderful set piece here, one of the most fantastic set pieces ever, where they go through the mines, and they wake up the goblins that are in there, and there's this huge battle where they get attacked by this cave troll and these goblins. That scene where you hear the hooting in the background and the drum beat, like the heartbeat, and it's like, it just, even after 50 watching, it's still menacing. It's just amazing. Yeah. I thought the CGI was a little shaky here when I first saw it in the theater, but when I look back at it now, it's like, no, it's pretty damn good.
It's aged phenomenally. And honestly, all the CGI has aged phenomenally. Because again, we'll get to our last, latest watch through, but the way that they blend that, you have the CGI and then the makeup and the physical set that they somehow they make it all interact together, and it just looks incredible.
But just the lighting of the scene, and we haven't talked about the score yet at any point here, but the musical score that supports each one of these major set pieces is just beyond, just amazing. You can almost tell what's going on just by listening to the music almost. And so as they're fleeing the mines of Moria, we get this confrontation with the Balrog. That's what I thought here was cool, is the Balrog is this like creature of the Morgoth, ancient beast that even Legolas is, who at this point has been fearless and just a complete badass. You can see it just in his one scene where he shakes a little bit in his eyes. He fears it, And we get this amazing, everybody's seen this scene now, but this is the "you shall not pass" thing that was in every trailer, and that iconic line that Gandalf fights,
spawned a million memes.
Exactly. Gandalf fights this Balrog, and it pulls him down to the depths of shadow and flame. And for those that aren't familiar with the story, you lose Gandalf here. You're this fun wizard who's also a badass, but also a sweet old guy. He dies here, for all you know, right? And that scene where they get outside and the hobbits are completely broken and crying, and just especially Pippin, who's been given hell by Gandalf the whole trip for being stupid. But again, the soundtrack here, that soprano solo where she sings that haunting melody that after he dies, and you see that the hobbits crying, and the whole party is just devastated by his loss. If you don't know how the story goes, that would be an amazing loss for anybody. It's a very emotional scene.
You don't expect it.
Yeah. So they try to, after this happens, they try to gather themselves and make their way on the journey. So they decide the next best place to go to is Lothlorien, which is another elven kingdom. They get about 10 feet before getting captured. And these are not friendly elves initially. But the thing about Lothlorien is that's where Galadriel lives. And how great is Cate Blanchett? Oh my God.
Just without words. She's like, I don't know.
I had this conversation with my wife when we watched it the first time. That the scene where she makes her first appearance, and she's backlit, and her skin is flawless, and she's like beyond beautiful, and just this angelic figure. Cate Blanchett's going to have that forever. That's always going to be up on that celluloid forever. That's just to have that in your resume. No matter what you do, she's always going to have those moments on screen where it's, what an amazing, iconic image just to be captured like that. But she's also a witch. So when she meets the party, they hear about Gandalf, and she gives them refuge there. And she can kind of read their minds, and she psychically tells Frodo that someone in the Fellowship is going to turn. Yeah.
I got a normie question for you.
Ooh.
Is okay? You got Elrond and you got Galadriel. Who is
Mm-hmm.
who is higher in the leadership of the elves?
Galadriel.
Okay. Well, why does he have the better Rivendell? Why does that seem like a more posh capital or location than a tree fort?
I don't know if it's bad. Well, it's two different purposes. So Rivendell is a place where they do lots of learning, and there's like preservation of information, I guess you might say.
So
You can go there if you
it's
want
like
to find something out.
Oxford. Yeah, I got
Yeah,
you.
yeah, exactly. Whereas Lothlorien is a place that's frozen in time. So Lothlorien harkens back to like the original Elven kingdoms, and where Galadriel is actually from. She's like one of the originals who came to Middle Earth, and she was part of this. This could go on for a while.
I got you. No, it makes
yeah,
it's more of a mystical. Yeah. I got you.
Yeah.
It's their origin.
Yeah.
It's not the Keebler elves, but it's like it has more sacredness to it. I got you.
I don't know. They make snacks. They have Lembas.
They must have something.
All vegan, of course, yeah. But she knows she can determine that Sauron's alive again, and she knows that this party is cursed. There's someone in that party that's going to turn on them, and she suspects it's going to be Boromir. And she warns Frodo and tells him that she can't do anything other than support their journey. But as they leave, she gives this is the extended version at least. She gives all the members of the Fellowship these items, these gifts to go. It's a wonderful scene. And this is where Gimli and Legolas, they've had this contentious relationship because of the history between those two cultures. They start to become friends because Gimli kind of gets immersed in the elf culture and begins to appreciate Galadriel and dwarf crush on her for real. And but that's when they start to bury the hatchet, so to speak, become friends. The Fellowship starts to grow a little bit here. You always had this rivalry between Aragorn and Boromir because Boromir is left with the last kingdom of men, and the consensus is that through Middle Earth that men are weak and the men are failing, and Aragorn has just abandoned them and just kind of lived in between worlds. But even though his mother was Elvish, was that correct, Molly?
He's no, she wasn't Elvish, but she wasn't Elvish. She was. They lived with the elves. They basically his father was killed when he was 2, and they moved and lived in Rivendell.
He grew up as an elf. Just like Buddy, Mike.
Right. Yes, Buddy.
See how it all works out. So at this point, Saruman has unleashed thousands of orcs to find Frodo and bring the ring back, and they're this wonderful scene of those guys just crashing through the countryside looking for them.
Oh, yeah.
They head out on their boats, and as they're camping, it turns out that the lure of the ring is too much for Boromir, and he goes after Frodo and tries to attack it. And then Frodo tries to understand that the Fellowship is too dangerous to be in. He has to go on his own. So he does a little mind trick on Boromir, and Boromir gets kind of like shaken into reality and realizes what he has done and starts to immediately regret it. But at this point, the orcs have found them, and there's this big end battle piece that are just amazing. Just to fleeing through the woods. Merry and Pippin put up this huge fight before Boromir comes in to try to save them, and this is our first major death. Scene. Yeah, a great scene where Boromir comes back to for his retribution scene and gets killed. Then the 2 hobbits get taken away and kidnapped, and meanwhile Gimli and Legolas are there just too late. And there's this wonderful scene at the end where Boromir's death scene where him and Aragorn have their final says, and Aragorn's emotionally tore up at this point, and he realized that Boromir's sacrifice has reinvigorated his faith in men, and he decides to take his gauntlets and take the leadership. And it's an amazing scene here that makes his character kind of come back into the realm of men and kind of try to press on. And then Sam and Frodo split up, and Frodo doesn't want to be joined by anybody. He wants to go on his own because he doesn't want to risk his fellowship. And of course, Sam won't have it because that's what Sam is. Sam's his man. And so they end up,
Mr. Frodo indeed.
Mr. Frodo. So they end up ultimately getting together, and it kind of splinters off into 3 different stories here. Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas decide they're going to go capture, or they're going to go rescue Merry and Pippin. And then Sam and Frodo just head out, and the movie ends with them walking on a cliff and looking over
the vastness of Middle Earth.
Yeah, they see Mount Doom, in the landscape ahead of them, from the horizon, and
perfect setup.
Yeah, and then you're like, and then they stop the movie on you. Which is I guess if you had to find a stopping point, this probably makes the most practical sense. But again, this is 3 hours and 49 minutes, guys, and there's an old saying in Hollywood where a good movie is never long enough, and a bad movie is always too long.
That's true.
I was after 4 hours of this, I'm like, damn it. It's over. It's just amazing. It's just amazing feat in filmmaking.
Great storytelling. Great storytelling
to make you care, and just you forget where you are. And then the soundtrack kicks in. I think is it Enya that sang that song at the end?
Mm-hmm.
Just a wonderful song. And then there's 25 minutes worth of 25 minutes worth of credits, literally. I think 20 of those, though, in all fairness, were for people that joined the Lord of the Rings fan club, the pilot program. They paid $48.
Oh, yeah.
They paid I think they paid $48 to get their names on the credits here. Yeah,
wow.
But
that's pretty cool.
But they're charter members of the Lord of the Rings fan club, and that's where you go. So that's kind of that did it no justice, guys. But I can't talk about the whole thing because it would take our whole season. But let's just talk real quick about awards and accolades, then we'll kind of get to what the meat of the episode, our take on it, and how it affected us. So this had a $47 million opening, which is just unheard of. That's just stupid. It ended up making $316 million domestically and another $883 million worldwide. It spent 4 consecutive weeks at number 1 during Christmas. That's unheard of. That never happens. The legacy of this, of course, we'll talk about here in a minute. It did, of course, it had 2 sequels that followed in essentially 1 year after the other. We'll cover those here in coming episodes, of course, but it ended up getting 13 nominations for Oscars. It only ended up winning 4 of them. Thought was that they were just going to hold on to the end and just give these guys all the awards for Return of the King, and that's what they ended up doing in real life. But they did win 4. This won 13 BAFTAs, lots of Golden Globes. Even MTV gave it six nominations, including Best Movie and Best Breakthrough Performance. They identified Orlando Bloom's quality way ahead of us. So. Good job, MTV.
Wow.
Got it right for once.
It's amazing.
But the cultural impact here is just beyond reproach, including the movie that came out a month before, Harry Potter. What do those ring wraiths look like? There's wizards and trolls and gnomes and fairies. I mean, this is all developed Tolkien, of course, but Dungeons and Dragons is a direct result of this. I mean, you can go on and on and on. One of my more recent, more modern legacies of this is the reaction video. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but there's this phenomenon on YouTube that there's YouTubers that make a living reacting to videos, and they're generally Gen Zs. And I watched probably about 300 this week.
Oh my gosh.
First time watching Lord of the Rings. And I wanted to do it.
You survived the cringe?
Well, there was once, I jumped in the pool and I immersed myself into it. And once the cringe wore off, as a social experiment, I wanted to see just generationally how far off I was, right? So the overwhelming consensus was that even these Gen Zs that watch these movies most of them were, pretty much all of them were in tears. And were in love with it and emotional about it. And what I realized what I was doing, I was kind of living vicariously through them, because I can't see these the first time for myself anymore, but I love to see people's take when they watch it for the first time. Yeah. And just to see these, they're like, I didn't know they had special effects like this back then. Back then. Gosh. But it's like they had never seen anything like that before, and so I just thought it was an interesting phenomenon. If you guys have ever seen those, they're really cool to watch. And it really plays that how the crossover appeal of these things are. I think it's just generational now. It's everybody's going to love this. It's on that Star Wars level where every generation is going to embrace it, I'm sure. So okay, so let's do what we came here to do. Let's kind of gush about the movie. But I want to challenge you guys this week. We're not fooling anybody here that we love these movies, but I want to challenge my team here. I want you to do with your grumpy meter. I want you to add 1 criticism. You have to put in 1 criticism of the movie. Okay. After 20 years of having it in the can. So Molly, why don't you go ahead and go first? Talk about the first time you saw the movie, what the circumstances and what affected you, and then talk about your most recent watch and if anything has changed.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I was 10 when I saw this for the first time. My dad was a fan of the books, actually, long before the movies came out. He would reread them every few years, that sort of thing. I remember seeing it in theaters, but only like 2 or 3 scenes actually stuck out in my mind later on. And then my mom thought they were too scary, so I wasn't allowed to watch the other ones in theaters.
Oh man.
I was like, that sucks. But anyway, so at the time, like I had no concept of anything that was happening. So I was just kind of I was blown away because I'd never heard the story or I didn't know what was happening. And but even at 10, I was like totally enthralled. And once once I was old enough to watch him again, it's like you couldn't stop us anymore, you know. So that was 2001. And then for this rewatching, I saw it last week. Actually, we're almost through all three of them right now. Again,
yeah, I saw the reel that you did for that, and you got a really cool setup. I gotta say that.
Thank you. Yeah. And that was the first time. So this last watching was the first time I had seen it on a big screen. I had always watched it either on my laptop because I was basically semi-nomadic for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Or it was on like a small TV screen. So it's a totally different experience watching it on a screen. Yeah. So that was great. But it's funny because I've seen this movie so many times, and so has my husband. So we'll kind of, peanut gallery back and forth a little bit and, talk about the movie. But there are still parts that it's just like, we would just stop and wouldn't say anything for like 15 or 20 minutes as a scene was playing out or something was happening. And it's the fact that these movies have the ability to still, like, even though it's the however many times I've seen it, it still has the ability to grasp your attention and catch your emotions in such a way that it's like it's still, even though you know how it's going to end up, it still grabs you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So that was it's so good to just try to rewatch them like at least once a year and be able to enjoy it.
Okay, so now here's the hard part.
Oh,
it could be minutia. It can be as small as you want, but can you find any criticism, Molly?
Okay, are we talking about? And here's just to clarify, talking about like storytelling, like just anything about it.
Just if you had to nitpick anything,
spitball.
Yeah.
Okay. Honestly, my biggest quibble is the storyline with Aragorn, because and I understand kind of why they did it that way, but I'm also like a huge fan of the books, and in the books he's always aware of his identity and that he is the king and he will eventually be the king. And in the movie they make him very reluctant and kind of almost like he's trying to run away from his responsibility.
Yeah, like a James Dean thing, like it's
kind of
like an outcast, right? Yeah,
kind of. Yeah, exactly. And it's like that is one of my quibbles, I guess, is that in the adaptation they changed his character to
more tension, so he could develop. I guess it was a way to maybe develop him a little bit more because if he was always just I get it, but I read the books every year.
Yep.
All three of them every year, and I know what you're talking about. He's never confused about what he is or what he's going to do.
No,
but I think cinematically, it's nice to have him sort of have this journey. Otherwise, he's just, he's
it's a different kind of journey.
Otherwise, he's Steven Seagal.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Well, that's a really great take, Molly. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, your turn, buddy.
I gotta thank you for having me watch this movie a long time ago. Because I had no knowledge of this even being a thing. I had no idea about the Tolkien, people. I knew a few references to The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings through like Led Zeppelin songs, and a few minutes, and ramble on, and a few minutes of like watching a Ralph Bakshi movie from the 70s.
So my.
And I never liked that kind of animation, so I was not my cup of tea. So I had no knowledge what this was about at all.
Yeah.
Which is probably a good thing. I'm basically illiterate, so I didn't read the books. But yeah, I'm glad you introduced me to this, Justin. This was one of the best movies I've ever seen, and I remember just being blown away and so thankful I didn't have to wait 3 or 4 years for the sequel. The second part, and then not another 3 or 4 years for the third one. So I mean, I love the fact they were able to film these basically at the same time and then just edit them out and have 3 movies, and years later add additional parts to it. It's like, I mean, just like you said earlier, just give me more of that. 4 hours is not long enough for me. Come on, give me. I want. Wait, I need more of that.
Bring it.
But yeah, it just like Molly was saying, it holds up so well today. You got real outdoor locations. You got. You think of a movie today, like a Marvel movie or something like that, where it's it's just actors reacting to a green screen and in a close-up stage setting.
It shows too. Yeah.
It does. It's incredible. Yeah. Like I said, having New Zealand or having an actual outdoor setting for a movie just makes it totally different. I mean, you're going to use the practical effects, whatever you can use back then at the time, any kind of CGI. I guess, too, I'm not burdened by the fact that I didn't read the source material, like Battlefield Earth, which we had a few podcasts ago. I should have not watched the movie. I just stayed at the book.
Yeah,
it's all about adaptation and the way Peter Jackson was able, from what I hear, lift the best bits of the book and not twist it, not obviously the quibble of Aragorn there aside, but it's so he didn't twist Tolkien's work to
there's actually passages in the book that characters on the screen say that were uttered by other characters in the book because they're so powerful. And it's really quite literally adapted screenplay so wonderfully. They get the tone and the elements, the tenets of the book, and they repurpose that through other dialogue with other characters to get those things out there. Just an amazing.
And it's a great piece of work. There's not much else I can say. There's probably a couple quibbles I would have. Would be, I don't know if it's from the book or not, but why did Sauron take so long to try to find the ring? Why didn't he attack Bilbo? He had a 60-year window basically there. I don't know if that's from the book. I don't know if that's mentioned by Tolkien or not.
It is.
It is? Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And why did Gimli not know what happened to Moria? I guess dwarves don't communicate very well with each other. I mean,
the fax machine's broke, Mike.
Oh, okay. I mean, it seems like a major capital of the
Dwarven kingdom. You would know about that, yeah.
I don't know. That's probably explained some website somewhere, but just that. I mean, for me, like I say, we're not actually getting the source material. I just watch this as it is, and it's phenomenal. It's just crazy good.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, good take, man. Thank you. So I think I mentioned this a little bit a couple of shows back, but I mean, I was always a fan of this genre, but this movie wasn't on my radar. I wasn't counting the days for this to come out. I was interested. I was going to go see it, but I had taken a week off from work, and my wife was at home making cookies with my mom, and I said, I'm going to go see a movie while you're doing that. And when I went there, and I sat down in the theater, and I realized something's going on here that I'm not aware of. And I remember it was a 10 a.m. show, and it was packed, and there were a multiplex, and there's 7 theaters, and they were all sold out. And I'm like, wait, I missed the boat on this. What's going on here? And the minute I sat down and the lights went out and that Lord of the Rings logo came up, the entire crowd just deafening scream went crazy. I'm like, wow, what did I miss here? And then of course that as soon as the movie turned on, I was done. I was like, okay, and then I think Mike, you and I went and saw it the next day.
That's awesome.
The next night, and then I took my.
You were like a little kid. You're like, you got to see this.
Yeah,
this is great.
That's exactly what I did. I took my wife, and then I took my parents, and then I went to go see it again. And it was nuts. I think Molly articulated very well. There's parts in this movie that even after my 50th watch, I still catch myself holding my breath, so I don't. It's these scenes I don't want to miss anything, like that troll battle in Moria, or it just goes on and on. Any scene with the orcs and Sauron, and it was just amazing, and just to see that for the first time was truly amazing. And the sound and the music, and it's I've got the soundtracks. I read the source material, and I was very forgiving of the way they adapted it. I didn't really have any hang-ups on that. So I mean, again, this is just something I'm immersed in this now up to my elbows, and like I said, I read the books and I play all the video games, and I watch the movies always are on in the background when I'm doing other things. It's just something. It's just part of my life now. So it's just great. The last time, and Molly, we're not trying to rub it in here, but me and Mike went to go see this at Radio City Music Hall in
So
February this
jealous.
year, and they didn't have sweet tart ropes. Sorry.
Ah, dang it.
I make fun of sweet tart ropes, but they're amazingly good.
They're pretty good, aren't
Like
they?
if I wasn't sharing with Mike, I probably would have chipmunked the whole bag myself. But yeah, we watched it at Radio City Music Hall again with 5,000 nerd fans, super fans like us, and the vibe in that room, Mike, I think you get a test, was like the scene where every character's first appearance on screen was met with applause.
Oh yeah.
Every one dog that has been adapted as a meme was met with applause.
Oh yeah. One does not simply go into that. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody went crazy.
Yeah.
Even this,
even
the scene where you get the first fellowship, the score, the theme of the fellowship, when they're going over when they're going over the mountain, the hero shot.
Yep.
The crowd was on their feet cheering for that.
Oh yeah.
Not to mention the fact that you had the New York Symphony and like a 500-piece choral arrangement behind.
Oh yeah.
With soloists as well, but to see, I was sitting next to a woman from Jersey, I think, that she had never seen it. And we were
so jealous.
Yeah, again, going back to the point we talked about earlier, to see her reaction, that it was almost like a second movie for me, and it was just fun to see her. I was so jealous. Imagine that being your first time seeing that movie. I think her daughter was in the symphony or something like that.
Oh wow!
In the choir.
Yeah. But again, that's I mean, I like it. So if I did have to find a criticism, Sean Astin's kind of like Jar Jar here a little bit, but that quickly fades because I know his role in the story and how important he is and how great he is as he progresses here.
Yeah, a little bit of what hurt The Hobbit. Yeah, I mean, this is all hindsight, of course, but a little bit of what hurt The Hobbit is in this movie with the three, buddy hobbits.
Yeah.
There you go. But it's kind of just too, I don't know, not cute, but just like you say, just
kind of silly.
Peter Jackson doesn't do humor very well.
I
think that's fair to say. He goes for the cheap stuff and the burps and the farts and all that kind of thing. But it was okay. But I think my biggest problem was, I think I talked about this on another podcast too, is that the ineffectual villains here, the ring wraiths. So I mean, their only existence is to hear, source, and find the ring. But their first instance, the hobbits get away by hiding behind a tree. There are several. There's a half dozen times in this first movie where they're no more than 20 feet away from the ring. So, but I understand that
it's like the horse. It's like the horse can smell them better than the
Again, that just took a little shine off of it, but again, nothing. I don't care, because that scene where they're underneath the tree root and that giant steel boot walks over them, and he's so menacing that even the earthworms are scared and the spiders are scared and they're running. I mean, that is an amazing scene. So if you want to technically pull out the reality and ruin it, you could do that, but I'm not going to do that. So there you go. Ineffective ring wraiths. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So. All right, so we talked about how much we watched these movies over and over again, so that got us thinking. So for this week's installment of You Just Made the List, Pal, we thought we'd also talk about other rewatchable movies, some of our favorites that just kind of, especially during this time of year, we just put things on to feel good. They never get old. So we're kind of running a little long here, as we thought we would. So maybe let's go around and maybe pick two. We'll kind of rotate around, but let's pick a couple other of our favorite rewatchable movies. So Molly, why don't you start us off? What's one of your first ones?
Oh man. Well, I guess one of my holiday ones. So I'm not a huge Christmassy person, but there are a couple movies that I do like to watch that are kind of classics. So I would have to say that White Christmas is up there. Like that's one of those that just kind of come back to every year and have to rewatch and just enjoy it. And it's one of those few ones that does kind of get me in the in the holiday spirit, as it were.
I grew up with that one too. That's a great one. So
yeah.
All right, Mike, another rewatchable movie for you.
Hunt for Red October. Mentioned this one before, and it's a couple of people we mentioned earlier, Sean Connery and Sam Neill's Russians. But once you get past the Sean Connery, Scottish / Russian accent, the movie is just tightly paced. It's nothing but action. That should have been the one and only Jack Ryan, the movie they should have done, but it's just me. So yeah, that's the movie. It's the proverbial. If I'm at a hotel room or then flipping the channels, anywhere in that movie, I can pick up on it and okay,
good, yeah, that's a great one. All right, my first one's going to be Jaws. We've talked about this we covered this on our podcast, guys. You want to check that out? It's one of our better episodes. I've always, I saw this movie in the theater, unfortunately, when I was 4 years old, and that had extra baggage, but it did instill a sense of, wonderment and cinema. I mean, this is an amazingly shot film. It's almost a flawless movie. It's one of my favorites of all time. I know what's going to happen in every scene, but I still have that tension when I see that. That first appearance from the shark is still just thrilling. Just a fantastic movie that I grew up with, and it's never going to be away. And again, if it's on TV, using Mike's metric, if it's on TV, I leave it there. So no matter where it is. So that's my first one. So
yes, I saw when I was a child, and I still can't get over the body covered in crabs at the start of the movie.
Oh yeah,
so creepy.
Never went to swimming lessons again. So there you go. All right, so let's wrap it up here with maybe one more, and if you got an honorable mention in your bag, let's throw that out too. So Molly, what's your next pick?
There's this great movie from back in the 80s called Man from Snowy River. And
okay, there you go.
Don't know if y'all are familiar.
Another awesome movie.
Yeah. Great movie. So I grew up with horses, and of course I was obsessed and wanted to see all of these, equine related. Yeah,
that's where the Quigley Down Under came from. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So I did suggest that one. Yeah, of course. Now I can't remember who all plays in it.
I think Sam Neill in it.
He is not. Kirk Douglas. Douglas is in it. He plays twin brothers. Interestingly enough.
Oh, that's right.
Wow.
One with a peg leg. He just folds his arm up, or folds his leg up, and off he goes.
Acting.
Yeah. Anyway, but it's based off of a famous Australian poem called "The Man from Snowy River," and it's about this epic chase of chasing down this horse that's gotten away and joined a herd of wild horses. And there's it's a coming of age story with this guy who's trying to make a name for himself and win back the family farm, and amazing, incredible horse riding and some fantastic scenes. There was a sequel that was okay, not great.
Yeah,
I don't watch that one so much, but Man from Snowy River. I keep coming back to that one. I've seen that one many, many times.
Very cool. Any honorable mentions? Any new ones? Any other than that, Molly?
Oh goodness, I didn't have any honorable mentions.
That's fine.
Sure, I've got some. Just that
one's good enough. All right, so let's move on to you, Mike. How about you?
Honorable mention would be Maltese Falcon. Probably Casablanca. Anything with Humphrey Bogart in it, basically.
Yeah.
I could rewatch over and over again. Probably my favorite actor. But my second pick would be L.A. Confidential. I mentioned Russell Crowe earlier, so this it made me think of that would work. But yeah, it's a kind of a film noir movie again. Like a Humphrey Bogart movie, but it's it's set in the 40s, early 50s, and it's phenomenal. I know Kim Basinger won an Oscar for it, and she deserved it. If any movie she's done has been considered great, it would be that one.
Yeah.
Like I said, you have Russell Crowe in it. You have Kevin Spacey. I guess since he was found not guilty again, we can say his name.
Yeah.
And Danny DeVito. It's one of the most best. Guy Pearce is in there, but just a great, well acted movie. Not for every taste. Like I say, it's got, it's set in the time it is, which it makes me kind of appreciate it more that they didn't try to change it or anything. But it's based on a book, and it's one of the few books I've actually read, so it was pretty darn close to the source material, and I definitely appreciate that. So L.A. Confidential from 1997, I want to say.
Nice.
Nice call, Mike. So my honorable mention are the Star Wars movies, like 12. It's just 12 of them. Just 12 of them. I don't care. You don't have to. I'm not picky about them. I just watch them all the time. It doesn't matter. Again, I have them all. I can watch them whenever I want. I can stream them whenever I want. When I'm watching TV, if they're on, I leave them on and watch the commercials.
Nice.
It's just something that's, again, it's just comforting to me. But if I had to do a real pick, it would be Dazed and Confused is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's set in one day, the last day of school in 1976. It was the film debut for Matthew McConaughey, among other things. But it's really just a slice of life type thing. It was about 4 or 5 years ahead of me in terms of age on that. So it's about seniors from 1976, and it's about hazing. It's about a lot of things, but it's really just about these kids in Texas just trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives. And there's a subplot with Ben Affleck of all people playing this bully
jerk
that is spends the entire course of the movie trying to whack haze these 4 incoming 8th graders that are going to be freshmen, which was a thing back then. We used to get harassed by seniors, but that all went away. They'd whittle their paddles in wood shop and then find us and just let us have it. But just an amazing little slice of life thing that just captures what the time was. And needless to say, that the musical score is just amazingly accurate and just pumps out some great music, and just a fun, hilarious, with really casual dialogue, just really well written movie. I encourage everybody to see Dazed and Confused. So there you go.
All right.
So that's going to kind of wrap it up, guys. We went a long time because we knew we were going to do that, but like I said, we wanted to. We were getting kind of cynical in our reviews here, and the movies we'd covered, we spent a lot of time making fun of them. And then we covered Elf last week and kind of loosened up a little bit. So we thought we'd end the year with something just for us. And that's why we invited our friend Molly, because we knew this movie meant as much to her as it did us. So it was a joy talking to Molly again, for sure. And especially about this. So there you go.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah. So just a couple of notes about the show, guys. You can check us out on our Instagram page. That's at Grumpy Nostalgia. You can send us an email at nostalgiagrumps@gmail.com if you want to talk about anything else. We'd like you to help us vote. We have a YouTube now. We have a YouTube channel.
Ooh.
So we've got a couple shows up now, and I would like some feedback about what movie you'd like to see us cover next in YouTube form. If you haven't familiar, we essentially just take the podcast, and then we annotate it, and we add clips and segments and videos and things like that to help explain what we're actually even talking about. But they're a labor of love. They're complex too, but I enjoy doing it, and it does add another element to our podcast. So if you can think of a recent episode that you'd like us to maybe convert, if you want to send us a direct message or something on our page, and I'll put on an Insta poll, but help us decide what our next one's going to be. We'd be happy to accommodate you. So there you go. Okay, so that's going to kind of wrap it up, guys.
We made it.
Yeah, we made it through. Molly, it's really good to see you again. Hopefully,
good to be here.
Yeah, so we've got our first show finale coming up here at the end of January. We're probably going to hope to see Molly and some others kind of join us for that one.
Yes.
So all Molly all the time, so don't worry. So we'll be hearing her very soon. But that's going to kind of wrap it up. So, Mike, you got anything else you want to say before we head out?
Goonies never say die, Justin.
What about second breakfast? We've had one, yes. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for us. Merry Christmas to all, and we will see you again next time.
I suppose you think that was terribly clever.